different from the enthusiastic, idealistic young hippie who had run off to find herself in Haight-Ashbury in her early teens. Teg, as Tessa Brown had been dubbed by her book club friends, was the only one of the trio who was still working, although this year she was on sabbatical from her position as an archaeology professor at Taima University. She was also the only one of the three never to have married, or even to have been in a serious relationship. Teg had always felt she had a good reason for this, having been the child of a marriage that had ended in an acrimonious divorce, leaving as its only legacy a quiet, self-contained child who, finding she fit in nowhere, gave up trying and focused instead on her career. Teg was the shortest of the three, and the stockiest, this last a legacy of having done a lot of hard physical labor from her childhood on. Her skin was brown, her features reflecting a heritage that blended pretty much all the races of the world. Trying to discover where she fit had been what had drawn young Tessa Brown to anthropology. Fascination with what she had learned made her truly happy in her career. And yet now, Teg thought, I've come to suspect that I'm as much of a holdback as the three young people who summoned us over where to help resolve their issues. Well, now at least I have people who will be willing, heck, eager, to help me figure out what I want to do with the personal side of my life. She was sure of this, for the adventures she, Meg, and Peg had shared in the past few weeks, well, whether you said weeks or months had a lot to do with which world you were in, had bonded them as closely as family. Closer, Teg thought, since I'm not in the least close to my bio family, nor is Meg. But if I could have chosen sisters, these two would be at the top of my list. A melodious baritone voice broke into their discussion just as Meg seemed on the verge of speaking. "If I can interrupt your no doubt brilliant speculations," said Grunwald, poking his head down the hatch from the main deck, "we're coming up on Grace's Mesa." Slicewind's captain was a tall young man in his early 20s. It said something about how accustomed to overwear Teg had become that she no longer saw his stag's head as any more notable than she did physical characteristics that set her two human friends apart from each other. In this, Teg realized she'd come to embrace the way people overwear viewed each other. Although the head was the most immediately visible of the animal traits, and the tail the second, the natural coloration of the animal extended to the human-style body that began somewhere in the vicinity of the neck as a gradual transition rather than a line. Hands clearly showed this blending of traits, with those types that were hoof-stock, like Grunwald, having thicker, heavier nails than the average human, while those whose animal type had claws had sharper, pointier nails that, in some cases, even retracted. For all his abrupt, often rude manner of speech, Grunwald was probably the kindest of the three young people who had initially summoned Meg, Peg, and Teg to the world Peg had dubbed Overwear. Grunwald went on, "Peg, the last time we came here, you handled Slicewind's wheel when we went through the vortex. I was wondering if you'd stand by, just in case I have any trouble with the winds." "Sure," Peg said, tucking her omnipresent knitting away before rising and retrieving a jacket from the pegs on the port side wall, preparatory to following him above decks. "Given your rapport with Slicewind, I'm sure you'll be able to read the air currents just fine, but—" Her voice trailed away as she clambered onto the upper deck. "Is it my imagination," Teg said to Meg after the pair were safely out of earshot, "or is Grunwald more careful about Slicewind now that he's on the way to owning the ship? Sort of like the kid who's careless about the family car, but hovers over his first junker like it's made from gold and diamonds?" "Not your imagination," Meg agreed. "Although I think that Grunwald's additional care has as much to do with the realization that he and Slicewind share a mystic bond than that he may be its sole owner in the not-too-distant future. Although it's possible that Grunwald could develop a similar rapport with another sky sailor, the process might take him as many years as he's already invested in Slicewind. He started working with her when he was hardly tall enough to handle the wheel." "I was a little surprised when Connell didn't just give Grunwald the ship," Teg mused.